Marketer of the Day, episode 572. Real estate, communication, and work ethic. What home buyers and sellers need to know. With Dallas Realtor, Chris Bentley.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Chris D. Bentley, and Chris is a Dallas Realtor, and he has over 15 years of experience selling real estate in multiple states, and he's a member of the Rogers Healy team, and he's widely recognized as one of the premier real estate companies in the Dallas and Fort Worth areas. Chris is the author of 2 books. One is called 7 Home Buying Misconceptions, What Every Home Buyer Needs to Know. Another one is called 7 Tips to Get the Highest Value for Your House, What Every Home Seller Needs to Know. So Chris knows all this real estate stuff. He's been committing to providing outstanding service and value to buyers and sellers, and he's closed over 40 transactions, and he's highly passionate about client satisfaction. And Chris's goal is to educate his clients so that they make the best possible decisions and get a great deal. So Chris, glad to be talking to you.
I'm pumped to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, home ownership, right? Like, I think a lot of people, it seems that they have some sort of a strategy, right? Like some people say, well, you should, wait until you have all these other investments or this other stuff saved up. Or some people say you should do house hacking, like rent a house and sell it as much as you can, or, pay it all off or keep the equity super low. So do you personally have a recommended strategy, a shtick of all these choices that you like the best?
Oh man, there's so much misinformation out there. That's why I wrote the book, to try to clarify some of it. I deal with a lot of first-time home buyers, so I come across all kinds of different scenarios. But the thing for me is that I tell everyone, just get in. Like once you're a first-time home buyer and you get into your first home, like you'll figure out the process, you'll realize it, and then you'll actually have a house, and you won't have to reinvent the wheel next time. It's so much easier once you own a home.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Just start small and just get the ball rolling so that way your monthly rent payment doesn't go to paying someone else's mortgage, right?
Exactly. You can always trade up or trade down. Just once you're in, you're in. So just, stay there.
Okay, so as far as just getting in, what do you recommend people do? Do you recommend that they buy something big or small, or does it depend on lifestyle, age? What's your advice for someone looking to just get in the first place?
For myself, what I usually tell people is to get in with at least amount of money out of your pocket, while at the same time making the payment as comfortable as possible. So whatever you're paying in terms of rent, you want to kind of not deviate too far from that. And of course, you don't want to come out of pocket too much. It's just, you never really know. So there's a lot of, life is long. So stuff happens and you're going to need money at some point. And then when you have a house, it's difficult to get that money out unless you refinance or sell the home. So I always recommend always being cash positive and then go into the house and then, do whatever you want to do from there.
Okay, great. So we be cash positive and keep that down payment low. That way that money is not locked up. And so do you, as far as like the real estate stuff, do you experience or see any sort of like FOMO, fear of missing out? And what I mean by that is that when housing prices were super low, I couldn't wait to get in. And then now that, at least in the area I'm at, housing prices are super high. And I'm thinking, well, there's got to be a top to it eventually. But I also have to live somewhere, right? So sometimes I think well, it'd be great to sell at just the right time and sell my house at the peak. And then, or refinance it and cash out and then move somewhere else where it's super low. But then I'm thinking, I don't know, do I really want to do all that? So do you have any thoughts on that, on just that whole idea of, I guess, riding the roller coaster, the cycles in these housing prices?
Yeah, I have some. It just really depends on when you purchase the home. So if you've already been in the home for a couple of years and now you've got built up some equity and you're like, well, maybe I'll sell and kind of sit on the sidelines. I definitely recommend that because the market at some point is going to, decline. We're in a bull market in the last 10 years and, every 10-year cycle. So it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of time. So then you can just kind of live in an apartment or live with your folks or girlfriend, wife, whatever the situation is, and then save up that money and then buy something when the market goes down. For people that are buying a house, I mean, it's just, you got to get in. And if the house prices are high and that's the price of the thing, I mean, that's the house that you want. There's emotions involved versus like stocks, like if you're like, oh, like, Walmart's kind of high today, like maybe I'll wait till tomorrow. Like you can do that, but with houses, you can't. Like, the person's trying to sell it. So, and then there's competition, of course, for the house. So it's just a matter of just buying it if it meets your needs and you're emotionally tied to it.
Okay, so emotion is a factor, but shouldn't be the only factor. And what I'm also hearing from some of your answers here is that sometimes ego or the showing off gets in the way, right? A lot of people want to just have a big flashy house, and you're saying, well, maybe sell your house and sit on the sidelines and downsize for a few years and move in with your folks until you can buy back in. And nothing wrong with that, because you're playing the long game, right? You're right, looking exactly. to build your own bank account, not just impress people that you don't even like.
Exactly. I mean, it's real easy to impress people or try to impress people with the houses. It's just because, I live in Dallas, so everything is really flashy, but it's just really easy to do that because you want to, show off that you can move into this expensive house or whatever the situation is. It's just that, I've lived through the bubble and I know what it's like when nobody's lending any money. When you go into the bank and no bank is going to lend you money because it's tight, and so I know what that's like. And I know what it's like when the whole economy crashes and there's no jobs and people are getting laid off. So I always err on the side of caution and be something comfortable. And then if somebody doesn't want to err on that, I've seen that side of that too. And, foreclosure is not a pretty picture.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it seems like it's an easy way to remove stress if you play it a little more on the safe side and don't go super crazy like some of the, no money down sort of stuff that you used to see. I mean, it sounds great getting in, but in a few years, if the worst case scenario happens, do you really want to be stuck holding the bag there? Sounds like a scary place to be that could be avoided if we just thought things through a few years into the future. So you have this book called 7 Home Buying Misconceptions, What Every Home Buyer Needs to Know. So do you feel like unpacking some of those for us today and telling us some of these tips that we need to know about buying a home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing and most important thing is everybody thinks that you have to put 20% down. And that's like, those are the days of our parents and grandparents. It's not that way anymore. Fannie Mae has products that are 3.5% down. There's other programs out there that are structured for government workers and a couple of other people in the community. So there's programs out there that you can not have to put so much money down and actually be cash positive and actually, move into your house and not be cash poor. So there's programs like that. Credit score is a big deal. Everybody talks about having like immaculate credit. You can go down to a 580 score in some loan programs. There's just a lot of just really bad misconceptions out there. And there's just a lot of stuff that's available. And I think a lot of people don't do enough due diligence of just asking a professional versus just kind of Googling and asking their, pod mate at work how they got into a house.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense when you explain it that way. I mean, if you just do your own research or you ask a coworker or you rely on some of that outdated parent kind of advice, then you're really limiting yourself. Why not go straight to the source and ask someone who knows these things, who's kept up to date on some of these things? And it also sounds like, I mean, some of these programs aren't as scary as it seems, right? And it's, at least for me, it seems like I'm having to untrain some of my old bad thinking, because like as a kid I always heard about the whole 20% thing myself. I always heard like, oh, you have to have a big down payment, but then but it doesn't need to be that way. If the numbers are right, if you have your budget, if you know what kind of money's coming in and your savings, and you can afford that monthly payment, then and there's comfortable room and all that stuff in your money, then there's nothing wrong with taking advantage of some of these kind of newer, more cutting edge programs, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say it's free money because there's nothing really free, but there's just different ways to get in where, uh, you know, home buying is a lot easier than what it was back in our parents' or grandparents' days.
Right. And so what is the long term plan here? Like, do you recommend that people get in and get that house paid off, or buy, or get to the position where they have multiple houses and can rent them out, or like what sorts of things excite you as far as what can be done in like 10 or 20 years?
Well, there's endless possibilities. Once you get into a home, you could usually you're still going to start out with a smaller home, so you're going to want to upsize or upgrade as the family gets bigger. You're usually going to get married or have kids, so you're going to have more rooms and more space. So you're going to do something like that, and then of course, if your lifestyle changes, where you move into like a Goldman Sachs executive position, maybe you can afford some of the nicer luxuries in the world, or you're a professional basketball player, you can do kind of some of that stuff. For the average person, some people like to do the investing. I work with a lot of investors in terms of like wholesaling and flips and doing that kind of stuff. I've also dealt with clients that have multiple properties where, they have 30 or 40 rental properties, and they just, have like either a hedge fund set up or like a crowdfunding. It's really up to you. Like me personally, I don't like being a landlord. I can't handle it. People being late and giving me stories all day long. Some people can. They really like that stuff. It's up to that person. But for a normal home buyer, it's just a matter of getting in, establishing yourself as owning a home, seeing what it's like, and then upgrading to a bigger home.
Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. Get in and then upgrade to that bigger home. And then as far as what you said there about how you said that you don't want to be a landlord, you don't want to be unclogging toilets or dealing with late excuses. Do you have any thoughts on partner or getting with a property management company and just having them take most of the money and them dealing with that? Is that doable? Or is that worthwhile, or is that something to stay away from?
That's something long term. We actually have that at the brokerage that I work at, Rogers Healy. We have property management. They take a percentage of your monthly payment every single month, which is great because you don't have to deal with, eviction and court cases and unclogging toilets and any of that kind of stuff. But it's a long game. So if you set up to be like, okay, well, I'm going to rent this house out for a year, and then I'm going to make a little money, and then I'm going to do this and that, like it usually never really works out that way.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So there are all these all these possibilities of what we can do, but there are also misconceptions about things to stay away from. So are there any others that come to mind? Like you mentioned that 20% down isn't necessarily something that you have to save up for. Are there any other just interesting home buying misconceptions these days that people just need to get over and forget and relearn?
One of the biggest things I've been really talking about and preaching about is just making sure that the house is resellable. You come across a lot of houses that are like a 2 bedroom, 2 bath rambler. And I'm like, well, guys, like it's really cool for somebody that's single, but somebody that has a small family, you can't turn around and resell that thing. The economy gets bad and stuff tightens up and you lose your job and you need to sell. Like, I won't be able to sell you or sell anybody that house. It's okay, but it's just the limitation is high. It's kind of like having a convertible car. Not everybody loves driving a convertible car. So I've been really harping on that just because, we're at the end of that bull market. I don't know what's going to happen, but if it does, decline, I want to make sure that my clients are safe.
Right, makes perfect sense. Hope for the best and plan for the worst. And yeah, you're making me think about like there was a property just outside of town here that I was looking into. I was looking to maybe trade up into that. It had more like bigger house, more land, bigger lot size, all that sort of stuff. But then I looked at the date that it was built, and I was thinking that's just outside of town. It's probably got a well. The well's probably about to go bad. That seems like some sort of baggage where, and there was no real mention of the well in the listing. So I was thinking, well, it probably comes with that, and then you'd have to go and fix it up yourself in order to not get stuck if you wanted to get out in a timely fashion there. So yeah, that makes perfect sense where it might be tough to sell some of those things. Like you said, it's the convertible thing, right? It might be fun for you, but it's not really portable if you're looking to get out from under that.
Exactly. I mean, even in that scenario with the well, I mean, it's probably septic as well. So you don't know how long the septic tank's been in there. You don't know if it's got all kinds of issues until you got an inspection and a test. And then not everybody is really into like well water and septic. A lot of the city, like I'm a city kid, so I like to have a toilet that goes out to the street and I never have to worry about it.
Right. Yeah. And again, so it sounds like a matter of you do that due diligence and then you figure out your preferences, you figure out your likes and dislikes. That way, if I don't know if stuck is the right term, but if you're going to be living there for a while, then, why go with a place that you are unhappy with? So, okay, so great. So make sure that that's resellable. So what other kind of misconceptions come to mind about things we should keep in mind when buying our home?
You definitely want to have some payments saved up. Usually the lender says about 3 months. I say about 6 months. So that's another plan that I always try to caution, especially first-time home buyers, is that they can maybe squeeze into something if they, borrow some money from their parents and then do a little of this and a little of that and take some money from their 401k. But essentially, they're just going to walk into the house poor. So I'm always like, guys, make sure that you're going to have some payments left over, some cash left over, so that if you do need to make some payments on the fly and you're out of work or something happens, you'll be okay. And I think a lot of people just kind of squeeze into a house and kind of hope for the best.
Right. Yeah. And we were talking before we started recording this about, with home ownership, sometimes there are those added costs, right? Like the water heater might break, something might happen. And then if you're just barely scraping by on those payments, then, what else are you going to do? And that reminds me of like, Tony Robbins in the 80s. He was really famous for living in a castle. But then I was listening to one of his programs once, and he was saying that during, I think, the 4 years he lived in this castle, I think it was like a $10,000 a month mortgage in 1980s money, but they would celebrate every month if they were able to make their payment. And I was just thinking like, geez, that sounds like, like the most crazy, miserable, like reckless way to live. If it's a celebration that you can live in your own home one more month and you don't get evicted. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous. So, that's really good advice, and maybe not the most exciting and sexy thing, but I mean, that's. You have that padding, and then now again, if the worst possible thing happens, you still have that breathing room. You're not just scrambling. You don't have to do anything super desperate, get into even more debt just to make ends meet.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't even imagine paying $10,000 a month. But it's just exactly. A lot of people just they go from like the apartment life or like living at home to jumping into a house, and they really don't understand. I mean, we had a client that the air conditioning vents, like where the AC runoff, it never ran off. There was never anything outside the house, and there wasn't a fan underneath the air conditioning unit. So all that water would just seep behind the walls. They did a home inspection, nothing was found, and then they moved into the house and couldn't figure out, where this water was coming from. And they did a little pulling of the wall there and realized that all the air conditioning condensation was going behind the wall. So now you're dealing with, rotting wood, sheetrock, mold, worst case scenario. So it's crazy. And, that stuff isn't free.
Right. Yeah. I had a friend whose whole HVAC system crapped out on him, and $15,000 right there just to get that fixed. So welcome to home ownership. Sometimes you have to spend the big bucks to get things fixed there. So as far as you personally, so you're a realtor and you work for Rogers Healy in the Dallas area. So do you think that you do anything special or different to stand out, or do these houses just sell themselves?
Oh, you have to. There's over 30,000 agents just in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is a lot. And, some places I've talked to some people and there's like 7,000. So you have to have a really strong marketing and branding system. For me, I do a lot of social media. I do a lot of videos, podcasts, anything I can do to get onto all the major platforms. So you have to really stand out. And, at the end of the day, it's a matter of making sure that the client is happy. Even if it's meaning like losing a sale or, talking a client out of the sale because it's just a bad scenario. So you got to do a lot of that stuff. Here it's pretty hot in terms of anything under 200,000. So a lot of people get into, we don't really have escalation clauses here, but they'll get into overpaying and, doing all closing costs paid. And I'm like, guys, this is a super one-sided deal. Like, why are you guys doing this? There'll be other houses. It's like, no, this is it. I got to have it. And it's just, I think it's kind of crazy sometimes.
Okay, so you're looking out for people's interests as well. It's you do want to make money, but you're also being ethical about it. And we mentioned in your bio that you're all about outstanding service and value to buyers and sellers. So do you have any good examples of that, of just like something that you do that just like really kind of goes the extra mile as far as value and customer service and that kind of thing?
It's just a lot of different stuff. I mean, I give away all my stuff for free in terms of like my books. I mean, you can buy them on Amazon, but you can get them for free. I use all, people in the industry that have been doing it for 15 plus years. It's just, I mean, it's over the top, some of the stuff that I do just to make sure that the client's happy, because I'm in the game for long term. So even though I sold that person's house, I know they're going to be moving back at some point, and then they're going to rebuy the house. I want to be the first person that they think of. So I want to make sure that I'm overly communicating with them at all times, making sure that they know the process, making sure that I answer my phone, which a lot of realtors don't do, text message, stuff like that, just to be available for the client at all times as well. So that's what I do. And, I'm pretty open about, you can call me anytime or text me anytime, just so that, I can answer that question really quickly and it doesn't fester, because festering questions end up doing like a whole like backslide. Like, what if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? And if you just, kind of nip that in the bud, you'll be doing yourself a favor.
Yeah, before it gets too crazy. Yeah, and it seems like just all those things are really easy to do, right? Just stay communicating and just make that quick reach out, send that quick text or that quick email just to let them know what's up, or actually answer your phone, answer your text, or call people back, because if you're not going to do it, then someone else will, right? And it makes me think of I'm sure you heard of like Grant Cardone with the real estate stuff. And one thing that really impressed me with him was, before he was really big with the real estate stuff, he was a car salesman, and he would meet clients after hours, and none of the other employees would, because they all wanted to go home to their families. And he was like, well, there's a gap to be filled here, right? If if the other car salesman won't meet at night, then I'll be the one person who does. And likewise, in this day and age where sometimes people don't want to answer their phone, if you're one of those few realtors that does, or at least if you do and some others won't, then that's a leg up you have on the competition. And I also really like how you, like you said, you give away your stuff for free, but you also have these books out there. So that's a way to get these leads and this credibility booster. So that way you can show that you're an authority with this real estate stuff. You know what you're talking about because you teach people about it, and you're on podcasts like this one, right?
Exactly.
Well, cool. And so one thing I want to make sure that we touch on as we wind down is, so you also have this other book called 7 Tips to Get the Highest Values for Your House. So as far as selling your house, let's say that you got into the game, you bought your house, and for whatever reason, now it's time to cash out and move into the next house. In these last few minutes that we have, What I mean, is there a really good one or two tips for us to walk away from here to get the best value for our house when we're selling?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that I tell people is that neutral is the best. For whatever reason, people like to paint each room a different color, like red and green, and have different color carpets, and a brown is a really big color here in the South. So people have brown walls, or they'll get like that fake wood that goes up on the walls. And I'm just like, guys, that's cool for like a log cabin, but you know, most people just want to walk into a house and like make it their own. So you have to go back to neutral. So as cool as you think your house is, it'll actually kind of sometimes be really off-putting to somebody that wants to buy the house, that's really interested. It just they can't see past either the brown walls or different color carpets, stuff like that.
That makes a lot of sense. And I can definitely relate to that. The house that I'm living in right now they painted dark brown walls in all the upstairs rooms, including the bedroom. And it was cool at first, but it definitely wore off. And you're making me think of how when you walk through a model home, like a brand new home, it's pretty normal, right? Usually in a model home, there's white or off-white walls, there's light brown carpet, there isn't anything crazy in each room. They might have like one of the, fake kids' bedrooms has like something crazy, but they don't it's not like every room is themed, or they don't have like the fake wood on the walls. So yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense how if you're looking to make a room look super crazy, it might seem fun to you, but someone else's tastes probably won't match your taste, so it'll get in the way of selling that home just because you got a little too creative.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give them the ability to envision themselves in the home. So whatever you can do to do that, and I always recommend kind of going to a neutral. So like I'll stay with the light grays and the light blues and the white, the off white, that kind of stuff.
Super great. It makes perfect sense. You're almost making it too simple. So
I don't want to lose my job, I guess. No more job security.
Well, I don't think there'll ever be a chance of that. Everyone needs to have property. Everyone needs to buy and sell homes. And so this is good because it's a jungle out there. It's a mess.
Yeah.
There are so many possibilities. And like you said earlier, if you leave it to just the random bits and pieces that you hear from your coworkers, well, then you're not going to have good information. You need to do your due diligence and ask the right questions and get help from an expert. And so if people are listening to our conversation here today, Chris, what do you want them to know about you, and where should they go? What sort of like URLs and resources do you want to drop here?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to my Facebook page. It's Chris D. Bentley. I have a YouTube there. I have all my major stuff there. I have over 80 videos. I do a lot of video walkthroughs. I do a lot of market reports. So I'm very social. You can, message me anytime. I'll answer whatever question you have. There's tons. I showcase a lot of different properties, so you'll have a chance to kind of see me live. Get a feel for who I am, and that's really, my selling point is my personality. So, you got to really like me in order to do business with me, because that's just, I have a pretty interesting personality. I like to have fun, but not at the customer's expense. So I like to make sure that it's a positive transaction and everybody's happy.
Super cool. Sounds like a lot of fun. So everyone should go right now and check out what Chris has going on Facebook. He's Chris D. Bentley. And then you can also find him on YouTube to see those video walkthroughs and to see and to experience exactly what he's talking about, where he educates you, but he also entertains you and also uses his personality. So that way things are fun and also things are kept simple. So that way you know those things you need to know about not making those mistakes when buying a home, and you also do all the right things to make sure you get the best bang for your buck, best value for your house when it's selling. So make sure that you check out Chris's Facebook page. Again, that is Chris D. Bentley. Check out his YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, or if you're in the Dallas area looking to buy or sell, you want to find out about his books, then shoot him a message. And heck, maybe just shoot him a message to test him out and see if he really is as accessible and really is as quick as a replier as he says. I dare you. So add him as Chris D. Bentley on Facebook. And thanks so much, Chris, for stopping by and having some fun and educating us about home buying and selling.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
We really appreciate you listening to today's episode of Marketer of the Day. Subscribe to us on iTunes and rate and review us at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes.